Hello and welcome back, and today I want to show you guys just how easy it is to set up the brand new 53D series from QNAP for the very first time. It is not difficult at all, and although on this channel I do talk about NAS a hell of a lot of times, it's worth stating that the majority of modern NASs these days are actually quite simple to set up. Also, today we're utilising the 653D, which is a 6-bay NAS for kind of small medium business. So although I am going to be utilising 6 disks in today's configuration, the steps in today's video largely apply to any QNAP NAS, not just the 53D series. The reason we're focusing on the 53D right now in this series of videos is simply because it's one of their brand new flagship models that's going to be very, very popular. And a number of you who are new to NAS aren't really going to be looking up generally how to vaguely set up any kind of NAS. You're going to be looking at this range specifically. So I thought I'd make an extra video just for this range, just for you guys that have bought one of these for the first time. Now, there is going to be a clock in today's video. I'm going to start the clock very, very soon, but it's worth highlighting this is not a as quick as you can sort of video, because I am going to be talking to you throughout, but still, nevertheless, right now, you can probably look at the bar at the bottom of the screen to give you some idea how quick it is to set this up. I don't know, but I'm guessing 15 to 20 minutes tops. So let's get going and start setting up our NAS for the first time. So what we've got is 6 hard drives today, and we're using WD Ultrastar or Western Digital Ultrastar drives even. The reason being that although we could use WD Reds and more standard NAS drives inside this, we're going to be doing lots of tests in my follow-up videos, which are going to be way more business orientated. We're going to look at VMs, surveillance, and because of that, I wanted to get a bit more business level media inside. So we had these drives from a previous test involving the 877 series that you can check out in the past, but I'm using these drives in today's video. Now, what you're going to need for today's video in advance is make sure you've got a LAN cable connected to a router or switch in your home environment. That is the cable that your unit arrived with. Make sure you've got it connected to your router, the device your internet service provider gave you, or to a switch connected to that router. And make sure you've got that cable connected to that end and the other end loose. The second thing you need is a power connector. When you purchase this, there'll probably be a kettle mains power connector, and make sure you've got that ready and either connected to a wall socket but powered off, or just next to the power socket ready to be connected. You'll need that. Next, you've got to unbox the device, and largely the bits you're going to need are the unit itself, the 653D, the PSU that arrives with, the external power brick, and the hard drive or SSD media you're going to use. It's also worth highlighting in today's video that we'll be doing the software overview as well. So when we set it up in the hardware sense, we're going to move over to the desktop and show you the steps to go through with the software. And then once you're getting the device set up, we'll also set up the RAID as well. Now, RAID is important because RAID is when you have lots of different drives, in this case 6 drives, lots of drives together, and then they form a huge array of storage that can give you performance benefits in read and write, so that's accessing and adding data to, as well as the ability to have a safety net. So in the case of this, we're going to create a RAID 5, and what will happen is if one of those drives was to break, because nothing's infallible, if one drives with the right RAID, such as a RAID 5 in this case, your data is still going to be okay, and it sets that up in the background. So let's make our way into this device. So the first thing we need to do, in the case of this NAS at least, is get to the trays. There's a lock on the side, so once we click that lock off, we can slide the front panel off. Once we've removed that front panel, we need to remove all of the drive bays. Now, it's worth highlighting, at least in the case of this NAS, that you don't need to fully populate this device. You can get away with a single hard drive if you so choose. Most NASs, and particularly QNAP NASs, are designed to function with even one hard drive inside, and you can add drives as you go along, which is a really good way to scale your amount of storage media and your cost. I'm sorry if the lights are kind of dipping there while I'm recording this video. This has been recorded quite late in the evening, and the lights are being a little bit unhelpful here in the background. I've got some natural light coming in from that side. So to get the drives inside each tray, remove the clips from either side. You don't need a screwdriver. Get your hard drive, make sure the SATA, that's the connector on the drive, is outwards, and put the drive in the tray and make sure it touches the bottom by the handle. Then get the clips and put the clips on either side of the drive like so. those clips will click in and you'll know it's fine. It should be able to sustain the weight of the drive. Don't do that to find out. And then as you go, just repeat that last step 6 times. Slot each drive in and there's a little click there that will lock as soon as the drive goes in. And it's that straightforward. So let's fast forward and install these drives. And remember, different RAID levels require different numbers of drives. This is a 6-bay, so it can largely take advantage of any storage RAID system. But if you're running a 2-bay, your options will probably be a RAID 0 or a RAID 1 only. A RAID 0 is when you combine the drives together into one giant area of storage, which gives you a lot of space to play with, but unfortunately means you have no safety net. So if one of your drives dies, you lose all of the data. Next is a RAID 1, where data is written on both disks, in a 2-bay at least, simultaneously. And when that happens, the drives have excellent read and write happening to the disk, so excellent performance. Another bonus is by doing that, if one of your drives dies, you have a full and complete backup on one of those disks. So in other words, you have a 1-disk safety net, which is quite handy, but it's not perfect. A RAID 1 will then result in you losing 50% of your overall storage because you've used up 2 drives to write the same data. Ultimately, 50% loss is in available space. And that's why when you get bigger NASes, it opens up RAID configurations like RAID 5 and RAID 6, which give you 1 and 2 disks of safety net respectively, due to them working on a different system of data being written, utilizing something called parity. And it's when, with every wave of data that is written onto these drives, it is written in a wave. On every wave, 1 disk is selected, like just one by one, to have a blueprint of the data on the others. So in the case of this system, you would have these 6 drives, and with every wave of data, it would write on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 disks, and when it gets to the 6th, it puts a little blueprint of the data on the other 5, and then it does it again with the next wave. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, blueprint 6, so it carries on and keeps wiping every time with data, and each time the blueprint moves on to a different drive. The result is, if one of your drives dies, there's a blueprint and full data on all the other disks to rebuild your data. And a RAID 5 and a RAID 6 do this with 1 and 2 disks of failure. But you do lose a bit of performance because there's a lot of work by the CPU. But we'll get into maybe a little bit more detail next time. I've done a lot of videos on RAID. So you don't have to put the front panel back on, but I'm going to. Next, get that network cable that we had earlier. So the network cable that you've connected to your router or switch, and connect it into one of the network ports on the rear of your device. That is these ports here. Connect it into the rear of your NAS like so. You'll hear a click. And then get your external power brick here. And then connect the external bit, that's the kettle connector first, to your mains power cable. If you connect it in there, you'll connect it and then get the other end of the cable and connect it into the rear of your NAS. Now, do bear in mind that some PSUs will have a light on them to let you know that the mains are active. Generally, you should always turn the power on at the wall after connecting this device. But for the means of this video, I'm just doing that early doors. And that's the device connected and ready to set up for the first time. So now we click the power button. So the device is now going to power up for the first time. It's going to spin the disks and it's going to check that all of its network faculties are functioning. Now, these are more enterprise disks than we usually use here on the channel. The result is they will make a little bit more noise, as you can probably make out there in the background. Let's have a listen. More enterprise level disks will generate more read and write noise. Traditional drives up to about WD-RED 6 or 8 TB, and the same goes for Seagate, Iron Wolf and more. The result is that those drives won't make a huge amount of noise, but more enterprise level disks with larger capacities and 7200 RPM and just helium sealing and technology like that will produce more noise while the device is in operation. So do bear in mind. Now that beep generally means that the device has been found on the local area network, and it is now ready to be found by your connected system. So now flick over to your computer as I'm doing now. I'm just going to move my mic. And here I am on the desktop of my connected system. Now this desktop system here is a Windows platform, but you can do this on any Mac system or even a Chromebook. You need to download a tool from QNAP called QFinder Pro. With this tool, make sure you install this application, which is completely for free from QNAP, on the system that you're going to be using to set up the NAS for the first time. Additionally, make sure that when you've got it connected that you're using a computer that is on the same internet, that is network, realistically, to the NAS itself. What that means in caveman speak is this laptop is utilizing Wi-Fi from a router. I've made sure that the QNAP TS653D is connected to that router. Therefore, they're on the same network. You need to make sure you're on the same network so that your computer can see the NAS. So as we can see, I've connected it and I've got the tool up and running. So now I click the refresh icon. It's now going to search my local area network to find any network attached storage devices that are on the local area network to be found. As we see, the NAS has been found and there is its IP address on my local area network, and it lets me know that the system has not been set up yet. So it will invite me to initialize my server for the first time. I click yes. From here, it'll open a brand new tab in my web browser that allows me to start the setup process of my NAS. Here is the QNAP QTS 4.4.2, and it's asking us to download the latest firmware automatically. We click start, and now it's going to contact the QNAP service to download the latest version of QTS for my system. That said, this NAS, along with a number of NASs that have been released in 2020, already arrive with a very modern version of QTS, in the current case of QTS 4.4.2.1. It's now going to download this software in the background, and when it's ready, it will let me continue the installation. We've got a progress tracker bar, and the amount of time this takes will be heavily dependent on the strength of your internet connection. Throughout this video, you're almost certainly going to hear beeps in the background from the NAS as it initializes different protocol. Don't worry, these are all good. I might fast forward now, but for the record, the clock is showing me 11 minutes 19 seconds so far. From this point forward, we can go ahead and begin the smart installation guide of the brand new firmware. We need first to give our server a name. In this case, I'm going to call it the 653D because I have no imagination. We've got an admin account and we have to give this admin account a password. By default, the system will ask you, if you reset the password, to use your MAC address, but for now you can preset any password you like. Moving forward, you have to select the time zone, and this is going to be useful for backups as well as setting up internet connectivity. You can do it automatically or set it manually. After that, click next. From here, you can obtain the IP address or give it a static IP address. If you're going to be utilizing the device in a direct contact means, or you have lots of different backups running constantly, or some of the services and apps that you're running rely on the NAS to be constantly accessible, I recommend selecting a static IP, as this will prevent the NAS from having its address changed every time the system reboots for a firmware update or you move devices around your network. I'm going to go with automatic for now, but I do recommend a static IP for those of you with constant running services, often business users. From there, click next. Then say the file systems you want to use. Cross-file sharing are made a great deal easier if you enable the software to utilize different file systems. It can sometimes affect performance if you include all of them, but it will allow different operating platforms if you're using more than Windows to take advantage. Then click next. It looks like my settings are correct, so now I just click apply, and it will begin the initialization of the system with my settings. It will also delete any data on the disks. This system can take a different amount of time depending on the power of your NAS and the scale of your storage media. Once the device is rebooted with our new settings applied, we will be able to go ahead and set up our RAID storage pool and volume for the first time. This shouldn't take too long at all. Right now, the clock is showing somewhere around 13 to 14 minutes. So I'm far away from my watch. I've had to take it off. But hopefully the clock on screen should be indicating everything so far. And now the new settings have been implemented and we're ready to log into our NAS. Remember, this is going to be accessed via the web browser, but you can always utilize a bunch of client apps from QNAP. So we're going to go straight into the NAS management panel. Now, I have discovered there has been a firmware update released, according to my phone, since the start of this video, ironically. So don't be surprised if we see another pop-up shortly. Log in with the information we've created earlier, and from here we'll introduce us to QTS for the first time. Now, there's going to be a bunch of little information things on screen. We're just going to scroll past them. I do recommend that you give them a bit of a read when you set the device up. But mainly, I just want to show you guys how to set up the RAID for the first time. When this opens, you will have the opportunity to look at the desktop, as you see here. And it's a standard desktop, as you see, in a number of different NAS systems, particularly QNAP as well. And we will go through a number of these things in our software overview soon. As you can see, it's introducing us to the software and snapshot manager. I'm going to skip this because we're not going to go through all the details today, just setting it up, and the data collection agreement. You don't have to agree with it, but it's mainly to do with system health and drive health in the background, small amounts of micro data being exchanged with QNAP so they can improve their model. I'm going to say no, but it's up to you if you want to say yes or no. Now, as you can see, there's all 6 of our disks. If we select the disk option, it's already introduced this option, and there's all of the disks inside. They're all the UltraStar disks we talked about earlier, and now we want to create our brand new storage RAID pool. So we head over to the storage and snapshot option here, and then we click New Storage Pool. Now, a storage pool is pretty much all of the available drives that you want to select into one storage area. It's basically your sandbox. You can create volumes, which are smaller areas of container storage on the storage pool, but the storage pool is the maximum allocation of storage you're permitting. So if you've got multiple hard drives, you can individually select them, and then on that put smaller containers that can be used for different kinds of storage. It can be a mixed pool of all of your data, or have some for business use, some for pleasure, some for Plex, some for VM, some for surveillance. It's up to you. If you're using different storage media types, like a combination of hard drives and SSD, you can use Qtier in order to get a much better, refined, and ultimately better performing storage model. For me, I'm using just hard drives, so I'm just going to click Next. Now it'll ask you to select the drives you want to include in your RAID, and I'm going to go with all of them. All of these drives will then be selected, and it invites me to select which RAID group I want to run. As mentioned, different RAID groups have different storage advantages. I'm going to go with a RAID 5. You can also create a hot spare if you like, which is when a drive can automatically be ready in the background to, if one of these drives breaks, to take over immediately without your intervention. Although you will have to make sure you have one extra disk available on your system. I'm going to click Next, and now it's going to tell us about the alert threshold. This is where you will select when you want the system to tell you you're running out of space and how much little space you want to be warned. In this case, if I left this ticked, once I reach 80% capacity used, it will alert me. For now, I'm going to unclick that, but you may wish to. And as you can see, this is our new storage pool, and it's going to build our RAID. It's worth mentioning, and as I click Create, that the storage pool will delete any available data on the disks, as well as take up to a day to 2 days to complete fully. You can still utilize the NAS during that time, but RAID 5s and RAID 6s take quite a lot of time to build, and if you have larger disks like the 10 TBs I'm using today, it can take even longer. Consequently, shortly it will alert us to let us know that the storage pool is being started, although it hasn't finished yet. That storage pool will be building in the background and synchronizing the drives and the data write patterns ready for when the RAID is completed. However, you can still create the volume that's going to live on the storage pool in the meantime. We're just going to let the initialization of this RAID complete, and then we move on to our storage pool. The system has beeped just behind me, and we have a notification there to let us know that our storage pool initialization has started. Now we need to create a volume, and this is going to be one of many containers if we choose where our data is going to live. We select a new volume. It will then ask us what kind of volume we'd like, and each one of them has their own advantages. Some allow you to expand storage later if you intend to connect expansion devices or bigger or more drives later. But whereas others allow you to support or not support snapshots, which is image-based time management backups of your data. For now, I'm just going to go with the standard thick volumes and utilize the storage pool we've just created. So from there, we're going to move forward onto the next part. Now we will ask us to name our volume, and we're going to leave it at the static, the traditional data volume 1, but that can be changed. Additionally, volumes will generally be minimized to around 20% of your available storage when setting the device up for the first time for your first container. But you can go to maximum storage if you choose to have one giant container of storage on the storage pool. So you've got one huge 45 terabyte volume here on the storage pool if you choose, but you can allocate this to smaller quantities if you want different containers for all your different media and file types. Then we click next, and as we can see, it will now start creating our volume. So now we've got our storage pool, we've got our storage volume. The volume won't take too long at all. It will probably be done in a matter of minutes. The storage pool, on the other hand, will take longer. And if we head into the disks and over here to the RAID group, we click RAID group, we'll be able to see that it's still synchronizing. Generally, when you first set up a RAID for the first time, it will show a huge amount of time, but often this is not representative of how long it will genuinely take. It simply takes a lot longer early on as it begins the formative process of initializing your RAID. And that's about it for setting up your NAS storage for the first time. Once the volume's created, all you need to do is head over to File Station and start creating your folders. As it's created, as you see, it hasn't created our storage volume yet. Once it's done, our storage volume will appear here and we can browse our storage. And from there, there's so many things we can do. We can add applications by heading to the Applications Center. We can add mapped network drives if we choose to view the NAS on our local storage if we like using mapped network drive, and this will allow us to view all of the files and folders on our NAS using our local operating system on the PC or Mac system we're connected with as a mapped network drive. We've got lots of options open to us, and I will be going through a number of these in my follow-up videos, as well as my full software overview of the QNAP TS653D, and I can't wait to go through them with you, as well as comparing against the older generation and their rivals. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Do let me know if there's something you want to see specifically in the next series of videos of the 53D series. We will be looking at surveillance, virtual machines, Plex, and file transmission speeds, as well as looking at that all-important PCIe slot. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Go to the links in the description to learn more about NAS and this NAS, and I'll see you next time.